I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am, a year later, still processing what happened between my sister and me. It's one of those situations that starts so innocently and spirals into something you never saw coming. Let me give you some background first. My sister, Emma, and I have always had what I thought was a close relationship. Growing up, we were typical siblings fighting over the remote control, borrowing each other's clothes without asking, sharing secrets late at night. We weren't perfect, but we were there for each other. When I moved abroad 5 years ago for a job opportunity, it was hard leaving her behind. We kept in touch through video calls, messages, the usual. But you know how it is, life gets busy, time zones are tricky, and before you know it, weeks pass between conversations. So when Emma first mentioned she wanted to visit the country I now call home, I was absolutely thrilled. I mean, genuinely excited. I immediately started mentally planning all the things we could do together, the restaurants I'd take her to, the hidden gems only locals know about, the hiking trails with breathtaking views. I was already imagining us laughing over coffee at my favorite cafe, catching up on everything we missed in each other's lives. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to reconnect and show her the life I'd built here. The initial conversation was brief but promising. She said, "Hey, we're thinking of coming to visit you. Wouldn't that be amazing?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. When are you thinking?" She was vague about dates but said she'd get back to me with more details. I remember hanging up that call with such a warm feeling in my chest. Finally, after all these years, my sister would see where I live, meet my boyfriend David, and we create new memories together. A few weeks went by, and then Emma called again. This time, her husband was on the call too. They seemed really excited, talking over each other about their plans. That's when things started to get complicated. Emma said, "So we've been looking at flights, and we're thinking of staying for a couple of months." I actually thought I misheard her at first. I laughed and said, "Wait, what? Did you say months?" And she repeated it like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Yeah, a couple of months. We can really explore everything, spend quality time together. It'll be perfect." My mind immediately started racing. A couple of months? That's not a vacation, that's practically moving in. But I didn't want to seem unwelcoming right off the bat, so I tried to gather more information. I asked about their plans, what they wanted to see, what kind of activities they had in mind. That's when I got the second surprise. "Oh, we don't really have a set plan," Emma said casually. "We'll just figure it out as we go. The main thing is being there with you." Now, I appreciate spontaneity as much as the next person, but this was giving me pause. I pushed a little further. "Okay, but what about work? Are you guys taking time off?" That's when the third bomb dropped. Emma's husband jumped in and said, "Actually, we're planning to work remotely while we're there. We've already cleared it with our companies. We can work full-time from your place." I felt my stomach drop. Let me paint you a picture of my living situation. David and I rent a decent-sized apartment, 3 bedrooms, which sounds spacious, but here's the reality. 1 bedroom is ours. 1 is David's home office. He's a software developer and needs a quiet, dedicated space for his work with all his equipment set up perfectly. The 3rd bedroom is my office. I'm a project manager for an international company, and I'm on calls constantly throughout the day. Both David and I work from home full-time. Our entire routine is built around this setup. We have our morning coffee together, then retreat to our respective offices. We take lunch breaks together, sometimes go for a walk, then back to work. Our home is our workspace, and we've created an environment that works for our productivity and our sanity. It's taken us years to get this balance right. Now, imagine adding 2 more people to this equation. 2 people who would need workspace, would be on their own calls, would have their own schedules. And here's the kicker: Emma mentioned almost in passing that they need to work at odd hours because of the time zone difference with their companies back home. So while David and I would be trying to work during normal business hours, they'd potentially be taking calls early in the morning or late at night, moving around the apartment, making noise. I felt this knot forming in my stomach, tightening with each new piece of information. But I still wasn't ready to shut down the idea completely. I love my sister, and I wanted this visit to work. So I started asking more practical questions. Where would you guys work from? We're using both spare rooms as offices. Emma seemed surprised I was even asking. "Oh, we figured we could just use the living room or dining area. We're flexible. And when you're not working, we can use your offices." I tried to imagine this scenario. David and I would have to move our work setups to our bedroom or room that's supposed to be our private sanctuary, our place to relax and decompress. We'd be working from our bed, essentially, for months. The living room would be transformed into a makeshift office. There would be laptops, chargers, papers, work calls happening everywhere. The apartment would feel like a crowded co-working space, and then there's David. I should mention that David and Emma have never actually met in person. They've talked on video calls a handful of times, exchanged pleasantries, but they don't know each other. David is somewhat introverted. He's warm and friendly once he knows you, but he needs his space and his quiet time. The idea of living with two people he'd never met for months in an apartment where he couldn't escape to his dedicated workspace was already giving me anxiety on his behalf. And I knew I'd need to talk to him about all of this. I decided to buy myself some time. I told Emma, this is a lot to think about. Let me talk to David and figure out the logistics. And I'll get back to you. She seemed fine with that, though I could detect a slight edge in her voice, like she was surprised I wasn't immediately on board that evening. I sat down with David and explained everything. I watched his expression change from curiosity to concern to barely concealed alarm. He's a kind person, and he tried to be diplomatic. I want to be supportive, he said carefully. I know Emma is your sister and family is important. But he paused, choosing his words. Months is a really long time. I don't know if our apartment can handle 4 people working from home simultaneously. And honestly, I don't know if I can handle that. I need my space. You know that about me. We talked for hours that night, going through different scenarios. What if we tried to make it work? What if we rearranged everything? What if David worked from a cafe sometimes? Each solution we came up with had massive drawbacks. Coffee shops aren't suitable for the kind of confidential work calls David has. We'd be spending extra money on co-working spaces. Our entire routine would be disrupted. And most importantly, we have no privacy, no downtime, no space that was just ours for months on end. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about Emma's expectations and my own limitations. I felt guilty for not being able to provide what she wanted, but I also felt resentful that she'd assumed so much without really considering my situation. The next morning, I knew I had to set some boundaries. I called Emma back a few days later. My heart was pounding. I hate conflict, especially with family, but I knew I couldn't agree to something that would make both David and me miserable in our own home. I tried to sound upbeat and positive. Hey, so I've been thinking about your visit, and I have a proposal. I took a deep breath. I would absolutely love to have you guys visit. What if you stayed with us for the weeks? We could plan an amazing road trip together. I cover all the expenses, take time off work, and we could really explore the region. Then you could have a 3rd week where you do your own thing. I'd lend you our car, give you recommendations, and you could have your own adventure. 3 weeks total, doesn't that sound great? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I kept talking, trying to fill the void. I just think it would be more fun if we actually spent quality time together rather than all working from home. And this way, you get to see more of the country, have some independence. Emma cut me off. Her voice was cold. Are you serious right now? You're putting a time limit on family? I tried to explain about the work situation, about the space constraints, about David needing his office. She wasn't having it. I can't believe you're being so selfish. We're family. Family doesn't set boundaries like this. Family opens their home, no questions asked. I felt defensive immediately. Emma, it's not about not wanting you here. It's about being realistic. We have a 3-bedroom apartment, and 2 of those rooms are dedicated offices that we use every single day. David and I both work from home full-time. If you and your husband are also working full-time from here at odd hours for months, it's just not feasible. I'm trying to find a compromise that would actually be enjoyable for everyone. Compromise? She scoffed. You mean you're telling us we're not welcome in your home after everything we've been through together? After I was always there for you growing up. This is how you repay family. I felt tears starting to form. This wasn't going the way I'd hoped at all. That's not fair, Emma. I'm offering 3 weeks. That's not nothing. Most people don't even get 3 weeks of vacation time. We could have an incredible trip together. I'd take time off work, spend money to make sure you have a great time, but not enough time, apparently, she interrupted. Not enough to really be with family. You've changed since you moved away. You've become cold, distant. This isn't the sister I grew up with. That stung, really stung, because part of me worried she was right. Had I become too focused on my own life, my own comfort, my own boundaries? Was I being selfish? But then another part of me was angry. I was offering what I could reasonably offer. Why wasn't that enough? Why were my needs and David's needs less important than her wants? The conversation devolved from there. Emma accused me of choosing my boyfriend over my sister. I tried to explain that it wasn't about choosing anyone. It was about respecting everyone's needs and limitations. She said I was making excuses. I said she was being unreasonable. We both said things we probably shouldn't have said. Eventually, Emma said, "Fine, we won't come at all. Clearly, we're not welcome," and she hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd just been hit by a truck. How had this happened? How had a visit I'd been excited about turned into a family crisis? I called her back immediately, but she didn't answer. I sent texts trying to explain better, trying to smooth things over, but she left them on read. Days turned into weeks, and the silence continued. I tried reaching out several times. I sent long messages explaining my perspective, apologizing for any hurt I'd caused, reiterating that I did want them to visit, just within reasonable parameters. Nothing. Emma had completely shut me out. Her husband blocked me on social media. When I tried to call from different numbers, they wouldn't pick up. I talked to my parents about it. They were sympathetic but ultimately unhelpful. My mom said, "You know how Emma can be when she feels hurt. She'll come around eventually." My dad said, "Maybe you should have just said yes and figured it out later," but that felt wrong to me. Setting false expectations and then dealing with the fallout when reality hit seemed worse than being honest upfront. David felt terrible about the whole situation. He kept saying, maybe we should have just tried to make it work. But I reminded him and myself that we'd made the right decision for us and for our relationship. Months of tension, cramped working conditions, no privacy, hosting people we barely knew that could have destroyed what David and I had built together. And ironically, it probably would have ruined my relationship with Emma too. Better to set boundaries upfront than to become resentful and angry over months of uncomfortable cohabitation. Still, the guilt gnawed at me. I went over that phone call 1,000 times in my head. Should I have been more tactful? Should I have explained better? Should I have offered more? But every time I replayed it, I came back to the same conclusion. I had offered 3 weeks. 3 weeks of my time, my money, my home. That was generous. That was me trying to make it work within realistic constraints. The months went by and the silence continued. Holidays were awkward. I'd send him a birthday wishes, no response. Christmas cards, nothing. I saw through mutual friends' social media that she and her husband took a different vacation that year. They looked happy in the photos, which somehow made me feel worse. It's been a year now since that phone call. A full year of not speaking to my sister. There's this hole in my life where she used to be. Sometimes I'll see something funny or interesting and think, oh, I should tell Emma about this, and then remember that we're not speaking. It hurts every single time. I've done a lot of reflecting over this year. I've questioned myself constantly. Am I in the wrong? Should I have just accommodated her request? But every time I think it through, I come back to the same points. I was offering a genuine, generous visit within the constraints of my actual living situation. I was being honest about what I could reasonably provide. I was trying to create a plan that would be enjoyable for everyone rather than stressful and cramped. The expectation that I should just open my home indefinitely, disrupt my and David's work life for months, sacrifice our privacy and routine without any discussion or consideration of our needs. That doesn't feel like a reasonable request from family. It feels like an assumption that my life, my space, and my boundaries don't matter as much as her desire for an extended free vacation. I've learned some hard lessons from this experience. I've learned that boundaries, even with family, especially with family, sometimes are necessary and healthy. I've learned that being generous doesn't mean being limitless. I've learned that you can love someone and still not be able to give them everything they want. I've also learned that some people will cut you off for setting boundaries, and you can't control that. As much as it hurts, as much as I miss my sister, I can't force her to understand my perspective or accept my decision. I can only control my own actions and my own peace of mind. David and I are still together, still working from our home offices, still maintaining the life we've built. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Emma had come for those months. Would we have survived it? Would our relationship have imploded? Would Emma and I have ended up fighting anyway? But after months of mounting tension, I'll never know. What I do know is this: I made the best decision I could with the information and resources I had. I tried to find a compromise. I tried to maintain the relationship. And when Emma decided that anything less than complete accommodation was betrayal, there was nothing more I could do. I still hope that one day she'll reach out, that we'll be able to talk about this like adults, understand each other's perspectives, and rebuild our relationship. I miss my sister. I miss having her in my life, but I don't regret setting that boundary because it was the right thing to do for my own life and my own well-being. So here I am, a year later, still processing, still hurting, but also knowing that I stood up for myself and my household. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. Sometimes setting healthy boundaries costs you relationships. And sometimes family can't see past their own expectations to understand your reality. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Because even now, even after all this time and reflection, I still sometimes wonder if I made the right choice. Though deep down, I think I know I did.